Hi, I'm Amy Bernstein. As a certified book coach, I love helping other writers find their best path to publishing. It's such rewarding work and also so challenging. As coaches, we work hard to see our clients for who they are, meet them where they are on their creative journey, and offer the right guidance in the right format at just the right moment. But we're also human, aren't we? And from time to time, our own defenses and insecurities emerge, and we may say something that's not ideally suited to the moment. Believe me, I have been there and done that. So I've created these short role play scenarios highlighting 5 coaching pitfalls. In each scenario, you'll see there's going to be a version of a somewhat problematic conversation between a coach and a client, exaggerated slightly for effect to make a point. And then a second version of how you might handle this conversation differently as the coach. In between versions, I'll share some observations about what's going on. So let's get started. In the first scenario, you're going to meet a coach I call the prescriber.
I'm really on the fence about whether the prologue I wrote for my novel is really necessary. I mean, I really like it, but I wonder if readers will want to just skip over it.
Here's what I think you should do: give it to beta readers and get their feedback, then decide whether to keep it or not.
I see. So you're saying it's okay to leave the prologue in, and I should just ask the beta readers what they think. All right, I'll do that.
Well, that didn't go so great, did it? In the scenario, the coach's advice is really prescriptive. The coach is literally telling the client what to do, jumping in, giving specific instructions, and the coach really isn't taking time to explore the question in more depth. Here's another way to go.
I'm really on the fence about whether the prologue I wrote for my novel is really necessary. I mean, I really like it, but I wonder if readers will want to just skip over it.
Let's discuss the prologue. Does it provide the reader with critical world building that will help them avoid confusion later on? Does it set a particular mood or present a cliffhanger? If you left it out, how would that make you feel? In other words, what is its purpose?
Wow, yeah. That's a lot to think about. I should figure out what I want to accomplish with the prologue before deciding whether I need it or not.
Okay, so I think this conversation went better, don't you? The coach is prompting the client to think more deeply about why a prologue may or may not be needed. And so this open-ended approach is helping the client to focus not only on what they're doing, but why they're doing it. Now, the second scenario between coach and client is about a coach I call the fixer.
I'm worried that my book proposal isn't well organized. Some of the paragraphs might be out of order, and maybe there's a lot of redundancy.
Yes, I agree. That's why I've taken the liberty of moving around a lot of the information, making some cuts, and rewriting some of the intro to your proposal.
Oh, you mean you rewrote it? Was it that bad?
Now, here, the coach saw problems and set about fixing them, but client didn't ask for line edits, and coaching isn't the same as editing. What's more, this approach cut off a chance for the client to clarify their own ideas in the proposal. So here's another way to go.
I'm worried that my book proposal isn't well organized. Some of the paragraphs might be out of order, and maybe there's a lot of redundancy.
Let's go through it together, and you can show me where you think you might organize better or where there's repetition you don't need. Let's look for places where you can express even more clearly the ideas you're pitching, and then you can do some revising.
Great. I also have a lot of questions about the audience analysis. I could really use your help making that section even stronger.
In this version, coach is serving as both a collaborator and as a guide, roles that encourage the client to review the material while also inspiring the client's sense of independence and confidence. The third scenario is about a coach called the judge.
What did you think about the chapter in my memoir where I write about my mom abandoning us?
Well, to be honest, your mom seems really irresponsible, and I think you're way too quick to forgive her. I would be so angry if I were in that situation. I mean, where is your rage?
Wow, I was not expecting that. I mean, my mom really struggled, and it took me a long time to learn how to forgive her. Anger wasn't the main thing I felt when I was writing that.
Well, as we know, memoirs cover deeply emotional territory. The coach's mistake here is to offer a personal opinion that assumes the writer and coach are emotionally on the same page. This takes the focus off the writing itself and could damage their mutual trust. Here's another way to go.
What did you think about the chapter in my memoir where I write about my mom and how she abandoned us?
I imagine this was a difficult section to write. The main feeling I get as a reader is that while your mom had some deep flaws, you've learned to forgive her. In fact, I wonder if you might lean into that shift even more, learning to forgive, so the reader really understands your process. Does that resonate with you?
Oh my gosh, yeah. I really hope that that would come through. I can talk more about that, and I can see how forgiveness could weave its way through the whole book.
In this scenario, the coach's opinion is grounded in the text itself, responding as a reader might. Coach also picks up on an opportunity for the client to explore further, again, taking clues from the text, while also checking in with the client's perception about the shape of the work. The fourth scenario is about a coach called the presumer.
I'd like your feedback on the chapter where I go deep in the club scene in New York in the 80s.
It's always hard to write outside of your lived experience, isn't it? And I'm guessing you must have done a hell of a lot of research. Did you run it by anybody who lived through that time?
I did. I lived through that time. I was there. I guess I must be older than I look.
Oops. The coach assumed they knew more about the client's background than they did, and that feels a little embarrassing. Here's another way to go.
I'd like feedback on the chapter in my novel where I go deep in the club scene in New York in the 80s.
It's super intense. I felt like I was really there. How did you accomplish that? I'd love to hear how you put it together.
I am so glad I kept a diary during those years. It gives me a lot of notes to go back to when I want to write about what it really felt like.
So here, coach posed an open-ended question to obtain clues about the client's creative process without sharing any private assumptions or guesses about the origin of the scene. Fifth and final scenario is about the coach who rushes.
I'm excited to start working with you on my book, but I admit I'm also kind of nervous.
Don't be nervous. I'm sure you'll do fine. Did you fill out that 20-page blueprint I sent you 2 weeks ago?
That's what I'm so nervous about. I mean, I started it and it felt kind of overwhelming, and I got about 3 pages in. I wasn't really sure what I was doing, and I didn't know what you would expect from me.
Coaches, let's not rush our clients at any stage through exercises, outlines, revisions, and so forth. Remember, they need time and often handholding to process concepts around planning and structuring a book. And early on, your relationship is all about building trust. Take time to talk before pursuing results. Here's another way to go.
I'm excited to start working with you on my book, but I admit I'm also kind of nervous.
It's normal to be nervous at this stage. You're setting off on a challenging creative journey. I'm going to send you a blueprint. It's like an architectural drawing for a house. It's a starting point for making this project a reality. Let's set up a call to discuss after you've had a chance to look at it and how you might take it in chunks.
That sounds great. I could sure use help figuring out how to get started and also making a plan to create the whole book.
In this version, the coach is again a collaborator and a guide, reassuring the client that this is a journey they'll take together in stages. This is also about meeting the client where they are in terms of experience, self-confidence, and expectations. In conclusion, here are 5 takeaways to help you fine-tune your coaching practice. Ask open-ended questions that reflect your role as collaborator and guide. Practice empathy with every encounter. Listen hard to what the client is saying and not saying. Check your own biases at the front door. And remember, your ego is not your client. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you find this useful. Do feel free to share this video with any coach in any field. As Super Bowl coach Tony Dungy once said, greatest coaches aren't just game changers, they are life changers.